Palestine as a free and independent entity is something that they're not allowed, prepared to happen. And we need to give a clear answer that nothing less than the full lifting of the siege will do. Anything else is a redefining of the prison.
Several groups have announced plans to send new aid ships to break the naval blockade of Gaza. The German-based group Jewish Voices for a Just Peace says it will send at least 2 ships of entirely Jewish passengers sometime this year. The group had initially planned to send 1 ship, but says it's been forced to add another to accommodate a flood of volunteers. The United Nations has doubled its estimate of refugees fleeing clashes in southern Kyrgyzstan to some 400,000. Earlier today, the interim government said it believes some 2,000 people may have been killed, 10 times the current official toll. The International Committee of the Red Cross says the humanitarian situation there is, quote, an immense crisis. The former Kyrgyz president, Kurmanbek Bakiev, has been accused of provoking the unrest in order to destabilize the country ahead of a planned constitutional referendum later this month. Bakiev was a U.S. ally until his removal in an uprising last April. On Thursday, Kyrgyz officials threatened to close the U.S. military air base there unless Britain extradites Bakiev's son on allegations of orchestrating the clashes. A Rwandan court has freed the American attorney Peter Erlinder nearly 3 weeks after his arrest. The Minnesota-based Erlinder is a lawyer at the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda and a past president of the National Lawyers Guild. He was jailed shortly after arriving in Rwanda to help with the legal defense of an opposition presidential candidate. Erlinder was accused of violating laws barring denial of the Rwanda genocide. Rwandan government critics say the laws have been used to silence political opposition. On Thursday, Erlinder was freed on health grounds after 4 hospitalizations since his arrest. His attorney, Ken Ogeto, said Erlinder is free to return home.
We're very happy about it. The bail was given without any conditions. The only condition actually is that he's got to leave an address here, which means he can travel back to the United States of America. Prosecution was given the authorization to proceed with their investigations. We don't know how they're going to do it, but our client is willing to come back anytime they need him. Absolutely no problem.
A binational panel has recommended the U.S. government spearhead a $300 million project to clean up Vietnamese areas contaminated by the toxic chemical defoliant Agent Orange during the Vietnam War. Agent Orange has been linked to cancer, diabetes, birth defects among millions of Vietnamese, as well as American veterans. The U.S.-Vietnam Dialogue Group says the 10-year plan should focus on 28 areas around Vietnam. The U.S. sprayed nearly 20 million gallons of Agent Orange on a quarter of the former South Vietnam and border areas of Cambodia and Laos between 1962 and 1971. New governmental figures show the number of homeless families increased to 170,000 last year, a nearly 30% increase from 3 years ago. It was the 2nd straight year the number of homeless families has grown. The total number of homeless Americans fell by 5%. Utah has executed a death row prisoner by firing squad for the first time in 14 years. Ronnie Lee Gardner was shot to death last night for a pair of killings in 1984 and 85. It was the 3rd death sentence carried out by firing squad in Utah since 1976. In a statement, the American Civil Liberties Union called Gardner's execution, quote, savage and inhumane. The Supreme Court has ruled employers can read through employees' text messages sent on work-issued phones if they suspect wrongdoing. The unanimous decision came in the case of a California police chief accused of violating an officer's constitutional rights by reading transcripts of the officer's sexually explicit text messages. Critics say the decision is a blow to workers' privacy rights. In a separate decision, the Supreme Court invalidated more than 500 cases adjudicated by the National Labor Relations Board in recent years. In a 5-4 ruling, the Supreme Court said the decisions are invalid because the 5-person panel only had 2 sitting members. NLRB nominees have been stalled in recent years by congressional infighting. Kimberly Freeman Brown of the group American Rights at Work said, quote, hundreds of decisions in cases already decided will have to be reopened, needlessly delaying finality for workers who were led to believe they already had it. And hundreds of journalists and activists are gathering in Detroit today for the opening of the Allied Media Conference, a 3-day annual conference for alternative media and social justice. Thousands of grassroots activists are expected in Detroit next week for the second-ever U.S. Social Forum. The theme of the gathering is "Another world is possible, another U.S. is necessary." Democracy Now! Will be broadcasting from Detroit from Tuesday to Thursday and from Toronto, where the G20 will be meeting on Friday. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
And welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around